All right, so let's first dive in and talk about positive-only dog training. Now, it comes under a myriad of other names like force-free training, etc., etc. But let's talk about the pros and cons of this style of training method. So first, let's describe what it is. Simply put, it's a training system that simply provides or rewards with food, treats, or toy, and on the opposite end, denies the food, the treat, or the toy. So if the dog does something good, it gets paid. If it doesn't do something good, it just doesn't get paid, simply put. Now, overall speaking, this is a fantastic way to first teach your dog how to do something new that they don't understand. It's a lot like your kid doesn't know how to do math or reading yet, but we incentivize them to learn math and to maybe start reading, and if they do a good job, we pay them. And that's what positive reinforcement is. But there's a bunch of cons that go with it. But simply put, great way to teach your dog how to do something new, and it provides a bit of motivation and incentive and gets them excited to do the work. But the big fat con, it simply does not work in real life when a distraction is present. But let's dive in deeper and kind of unpack that for you. Now, one of the reasons why it fails to work in the real world is you must have a completely distraction-free environment. So before we go any further, I will tell you that we love positive reinforcement training as part of the overall package. In fact, we here at American Standard Dog Training and DIYcanine.com, we are actually better at positive reinforcement training than most of the positive reinforcement only dog trainers. We excel at it because we understand it so well and we use it to its maximum potential. But even doing so, once again, we fall very short unless we supplant that with something else that we're going to learn later. But again, let's just talk a little bit more about it. For positive reinforcement to work, you must have a completely distraction-free environment. You must have a hungry, motivated dog that either is really hungry or wants to play with that toy you have, and you must have a food, treat, or toy on your person at all times for this to work. Now, what happens is when your dog is no longer hungry because it's getting full 10, 15 minutes later, you run out of food, or you don't have food on you to begin with, you don't have a toy on you, or the food, treat, or toy that you do have on you is not powerful enough to overcome Mother Nature's distractions. What are we talking about? Another dog, cat, squirrel, bunny, person on a bike, kids, food on the ground, whatever it is that is more inviting, more exciting to your dog than what you have on your person. And I don't know about you, but it's hard to fight hundreds and thousands of years of Mother Nature, right? So Thanos is a perfect example. He has crazy high prey drive. So when my dog sees a cat, it's all she wrote. There is no treat on the planet that I can pull out of my ass and present to Thanos to make him want more than that cat at that given point in time. It simply doesn't exist, and it's the same with many other dogs, whatever it is that's your dog's kryptonite. But let's go a little deeper. What if your dog doesn't really have high prey drive, but it has fear-based reactivity, leash reactivity, it has some form of aggression, dominance, territorial type of aggression, you name it, where the dog is barking, lunging, acting a fool? It would be very similar to you being in an environment where you are fearing for your life, or you see a fist fight coming, or you're right in the middle of a fist fight. Imagine you're in that heightened state of awareness, adrenaline's pumping through your system, and you're getting ready to fight or flight, and someone presents a cheeseburger to you. No, someone presents to you filet mignon and lobster, pizza, French fries, whatever it is you're into, they present it there on a silver platter. It is the last thing you are thinking about when you're getting ready to get in a fight for your life. All hunger shuts off. And that's why we find dogs, or you at home might already be experiencing this. You're trying to use those food and treats as motivation. And if your dog is in the red zone, the last thing they're thinking about is food. That's where, once again, positive only training will absolutely fail you, because there is no toy, treat, or food on the planet that is going to overcome your dog's level of stress and anxiety. Question: how does positive reinforcement training fix bad behaviors, such as jumping, barking, biting, pulling on the leash, chewing on your drywall, eating your furniture, jumping on the counter and stealing your food, shooting out the front door, failing to recall? The answer is, it does not. It never will, it never has, it doesn't work. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's go with the first one. You open your front door and you tell your dog to stay, and it shoots out. It's running towards the street. What food, treat, or toy is going to magically appear out of your pocket, and how are you going to get the attention of your dog to even let them know that you have that item on you? And even if you were to somehow get their attention and maybe quickly hook up that food to a fishing pole and cast it out in front of your dog, even if they see it, is that item going to be more powerful than the thing they're probably already chasing, which is a cat, deer, bunny, the leaves, or just running around like a crazy thing? It's not gonna work. You'll never be able to get your dog to come back with the hope of maybe there's something in your pocket. And again, that's if you even have something at the ready when these emergency situations pop up, which they always do. Murphy's Law. Now, what about chewing? Let's say you catch your dog chewing on your favorite pair of shoes. It's chewing on your furniture. Are you supposed to walk over with a treat and reward that behavior? Out of control. That's what the positive only folks would have you believe, that somehow you can reward that bad behavior out of existence. It simply doesn't work. You would be rewarding the bad behavior to begin with. Case in point, my kid has crayons and is drawing on the wall with a Sharpie marker, even worse. And I come over and go, wow, great job. Here's $5. How does that get the child to not want to draw on the wall again? It doesn't. They'll incentivize them to probably do it again because there was no repercussions. In fact, they got rewarded for it. What about your dog jumping on the counter and stealing food? And it literally does it right in front of you. And as it does that, how can you either give a reward or deny that reward to shape that behavior? You can't. It's literally already on the counter eating its own reward. It's a self-gratifying experience. It's probably running off as we speak, eating your sandwich. How do you correct that behavior? You cannot do it in a positive-only manner. It simply won't work. I promise you that. Another problem that a lot of folks deal with, both with puppies and even adolescents, sometimes even adult dogs, peeing in the house. Peeing in the house is once again a self-gratifying experience, meaning, or a self-rewarding experience. Man, I have to go. Man, my bladder hurts. Oh, if I just pee behind the couch, oh, it feels so much better. The dogs get a sense of relief from that. It's self-rewarding. Whether you're there to witness it or you're not there to witness it, you could be screaming at them like, I don't know why you're screaming, but this feels really good. And at what point do you provide them the treat for peeing on your floor, or withhold the treat? Because you can withhold the treat all you want. What are you going to do? Wave the treat in front of them and say, well, you could have had this, but since you're peeing on the floor, you won't have this. It won't compute to your dog. It doesn't work. And lastly, let's talk about some more serious, aggressive type behaviors. Lunging, barking, and biting. How on earth do you use a treat to let your dog know that lunging, barking, and biting is absolutely unacceptable behavior? What do? You just don't pull the treat out and they don't get rewarded and just let the behavior continue to manifest and wash, rinse, repeat, and the dog gets better and better and better at it and goes down this rabbit hole of aggression? Is it that you, in the moment of them barking, present food in front of them and try to, quote, distract them away from what they're doing? That's what they would have you believe works? It is asinine. You just have to use common sense. The dog is actively doing a horrible behavior, and that's even if your dog will stop the bad behavior for a moment to look at you and say, oh, you have a treat for me? Even if the dog does that, which most of the time they won't, you are simply rewarding the bad behavior, and the dog makes a very simple calculation in its head. If I act like an asshole, mom gives me high-value treats. There is no way that giving a dog a treat or denying a dog a treat is going to fix a bad behavior. If anything, it's going to amplify that bad behavior. Before we close out this section on positive-only training, I'll give you one final example, and that's a human example, which is, let's talk about kids for a second. We've used positive reinforcement training to teach our kids how to do the math and to read. And they know how to do it. Fantastic. Now they actually have homework that they need to do. And so the kid comes home, you know they're supposed to do the homework, but instead they throw their books on the ground and they go outside to go play with their friends. And you say, hey, hold on, Johnny, you got to do homework. And Johnny goes, I don't feel like doing homework. What do you do as a parent? Do you bribe them with food? Do you bribe them with money? And even if you did, you said, hey, Johnny, but if you do your homework, I'll give you a cookie. Hey, Johnny, if you do your homework, I'll give you $5. And Johnny goes, I don't care about your cookie. I don't care about your $5. I just ate at school, and I'm going to run down the street and play with my friends. And you don't have enough money in your wallet that's more powerful than me playing with my friends. And Johnny walks out, slams the door in your face, and goes to play with their friends. What are you going to do? You're going to deny them the cookie? They don't want your cookie. You're going to deny them the $5 that they just turned their back on? You can't. There has to be a punishment. Now, you might say, I would ground Johnny, right? I would ground Johnny. So you say, hey, Johnny, come back inside. And Johnny goes, make me, and keeps going. How are you going to ground him? He's not even listening to you, right? So you go to grab Johnny, and Johnny shrugs your hand off and keeps going down the street. At some point, you got to do what you got to do with Johnny to make Johnny understand that that's unacceptable behavior. Now, most of you, again, would ground Johnny, and that's fine. The problem is dogs don't understand timeout. You can't put them in a crate. They don't get it. There is no association between the bad behavior they did at 9 a.m. and you putting them in the crate at 9:02 a.m. Those 2 minutes, lost. They have no idea what they're getting put in the crate for. And all it does is make them even more and more amped up to hurry up and get out of the crate and go back to doing whatever mischievous behavior it was that got them in the crate to begin with, because all you simply did was deny them access to the thing that they wanted, which only creates more desire to do the thing that they wanted to do anyways. So putting a dog in a crate, time out. Dogs do not get it. If you learn nothing else from this, understand that concept. I'm not saying crates aren't amazing tools, but they won't correct bad behavior. They simply won't. If anything, they amplify it. Going back to the example of a kid, what do you do when Johnny starts throwing rocks? Just throwing rocks and just pelting kids in the face with it. Very dangerous behavior. We walk over to Johnny and say, Johnny, stop doing that. Johnny looks right at you and goes, yeah, watch this. Throws another rock right in front of you. What toy or treat or reward do you pull out of your pocket to tell Johnny to stop doing that? Johnny, I'll give you $20 if you stop throwing rocks at kids. Does that make sense to you? Of course not. Johnny will take your $20 and keep throwing rocks and keep throwing rocks. And you have to come up with some other alternative to let Johnny know in no uncertain terms that you cannot throw rocks at other people. Now, why are we using the throwing rocks? This is a dog that is lashing out and prepared to or already has bit someone or is threatening to bite someone. They're barking and biting. You cannot reward that behavior with a toy, a treat, or any other type of reward. We must punish that behavior. And long story short, there is no way to enforce a punishment in positive only training. It's completely upside down. It doesn't work. It brings about zero reliability. Finally, I want to close out this section by talking about police dogs. And do police canine units across America and beyond use positive only reinforcement training to train and deploy with their police dogs? The simple answer is hell no. It doesn't exist. I don't know of one canine unit anywhere that uses positive only reinforcement. It does not work. And the proof's in the pudding. But I'm going to, let you decide for yourself. When was the last time you saw a police dog deploy for an armed offender on a tactical search somewhere, and they're bringing along with them a pouch of hot dogs? Never. It doesn't work. And I'll give you another example. When was the last time you saw a police dog engaging in a street bite, and the police canine handler came along and dangled a hot dog in front of the police dog to say, hey, you mind letting go of that guy's leg because I got a hot dog for you? It doesn't happen. And I can tell you, there is no police dog on the planet that will let go of a street bite for a hot dog. You say, Gare, why are we talking about police dogs? What does that have to do with my dog at home? Everything. Because there is no difference between a police dog and your dog at home, other than police dogs, generally speaking, have a little bit higher drive. But there are civilian dogs out there that are just as high drive as police dogs. Now, they may not want to go chase a bad guy, but they want to chase that bird, that cat, that bunny, that other dog. They have play drive, prey drive, etc. It's the same DNA. And so when your dog is not listening to you, it's just like a police dog, which very oftentimes don't listen when they're in a high state of drive also. But trust me when I tell you, police canine handlers are not pulling treats out of their pocket to bribe a police dog to listen. In the real world, high stakes of police canine training, we cannot afford to have dogs not listen to us. They must listen right here and right now. For instance, if my police dog's chasing after someone and they're about to cross the street, or they're chasing the wrong person and I need to recall them, They must stop on a dime and come back immediately the first time, every time, or they're going to get hurt or severely hurt somebody else. So they must listen. And if they fail to listen, there is a swift and severe consequence for failing to listen, which is where punishment comes in. And once the dog understands that, they start to listen each and every time. And let's go a little step further. If a police dog is on a street bite and fails to let go, not only are we talking about damage done to that person, we're talking about liability up the wazoo. That dog needs to let go immediately. We jokingly say when we see some of these police canine incidents where the dogs are not letting go, and every time the canine handler says let go or out or loose or whatever the command is, and the dog fails to do that, you can go ahead and chalk up another $50,000 to that lawsuit. Louse, 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 50, 100, 150 grand, and it keeps going. Look, in the real world of police canine deployments, bite work, high stakes, we simply cannot afford to have a dog fail to listen to us. And trust me when I tell you, there is no treat or hot dog or toy or anything on the planet that exists that's going to slow a police dog down when they're absolutely determined to do something. And it's the same with your dog at home. It may not be a bad guy that they're after, but it could be a cat, squirrel, bunny, another dog, a ball, whatever it is, food on the counter that is enticing them to do something that maybe they shouldn't be doing, and you're going to have a very hard time having something more powerful than the distraction that is present, simply put. And so there must be another way to be able to slow that motor down and get the dog to comply the first time, every time. And so that's going to segue us into the other end of the spectrum. Old school training, compulsion training, crank and yank training. Let's get into it.